Hello, First National Bank. I'd like to speak with a loan officer. It's regarding a second mortgage on my home. My name is Sheldon Lee Cooper. Sure, I'll hold. Oh, I hate hold music.
Let's talk about how the scene was filmed and how is it to do a show with the star that was born this millennium, the show that was set in the 80s.
I can jump in and tell you one quick fun fact. That scene came about because that particular episode came in short, and we needed an extra scene for time, and Chuck and I wrote that scene, I think the day before, and you got it that morning, the next day, and we shot it. And as far as other things about that scene, it was the first time Ian ever actually had to use a handheld phone from the 80s, and we had to explain things to him like what a dial tone is and how it works. Ian, what is a dial tone?
Something that happens on a 1980s phone.
Ian, what are the things on the show you saw for the first time and was really difficult to grasp?
Pretty much everything. The style of the house is, I'm not going to say very 1980s because I don't know what that's like, but it looks pretty old. And then the computers are so weird. I don't understand the
They don't even fit in your pocket. It's crazy.
And it's funny because recently online I saw a picture of, Mama showed me a really funny picture. It was a guy holding all this equipment from the 80s and said, now all this fits in your pocket. And it was like a, what are they called, like cassette tape thing? It had one of those. Like it had a bunch of stuff, like a camera and all kinds of stuff. So it was really funny, but a lot of things I wasn't familiar with.
Steve, you started actually in kids television. I don't know how many people know. Your first job was on the Amanda Show. You did a ton of sitcoms on Nickelodeon, so you know young talent. Tell me about the search to find a young star. I know Ian was not the first kid you saw. You saw a lot. What makes him stand out?
Chuck and I had written a pretty difficult 3-page audition scene that never ended up in the show. And we started receiving audition tapes. And one tape came in that was recorded on a phone. Did your mom record it on your phone in your grandmother's living room?
Over Christmas at my grandmother's house in Georgia for Christmas.
And as soon as we saw it, we were just blown away. It was not an easy scene, and as you know from watching Jim Parsons, being Sheldon is not easy. And we figured if we should put kids to the test and see if they could jump through a bunch of acting hoops on this scene. And he just nailed it, and he really made us laugh. And there was just something magic about him.
And do you read lines with Jim? He's a producer.
Mr. Jim, he had to go back to Big Bang Theory, which is really sad. But during the pilot, I did a lot of stuff with him, and he really helped me. He's really awesome.
You have worked on only multi-camera comedies until Young Sheldon. Why was the decision made to do that as a single camera? Maybe because multi-cameras have not won an Emmy in 13 years, like best series, including Big Bang?
I wouldn't say that Emmys is why. Chuck and I had talked about it, and we were going to be working with a younger cast. And it was also important to us to create a show that didn't feel like it was trying to chase after whatever Big Bang Theory was. That seemed like an impossible task. And we wanted to dig in on a more intimate level in Sheldon's backstory in Texas. And single camera really afforded us a way to see the world from his POV and tell a more intimate story.
And in terms of crossovers, we saw Professor Proton pop up on Young Sheldon. How much more can we expect? Do you think that we'll see flashback scenes with Ian eventually on Big Bang?
It's certainly possible. We're dipping into it on Big Bang. Before the season is over, we'll be meeting adult Georgie on Big Bang. And then there's no reason why we can't keep going back and forth in this weird little time portal that's been created between the two shows.
You should do a Young Sheldon / Big Bang Theory. Like it'll have, like it just keeps going back and forth. So it'll have Sheldon and he'll be like, I remember when, and then Young Sheldon it'll have Young Sheldon and he'll be like, I wonder what will happen in the future. And I'll go back to Big Bang. And then older Sheldon is like, oh, I remember back then. And I'm like, I wonder what happens in the future, and just keeps going back and
Is somebody writing this down?
What is the end game for young Sheldon? Technically, we be able to see his development all the way? Will the final scene be Sheldon meeting Leonard for the first time?
We're just trying to make it through season 1 right now. We're lucky enough to know there's a season 2. Beyond that, I think it would be crazy for us to feel that we've got an end game in mind. But what's nice is this show, Young Sheldon, takes place 30 years in the past, so we don't really need to adhere to a rigid timeline. These are just stories from the past, as long as Ian's growth as a human being doesn't mess with that too much.